guys, Pogo here, and welcome to episode 1 of the MySQL mini-series. This has been one of the most requested videos or video series that I've ever gotten, how to, connect to a MySQL database and, manipulate data, send data, receive data, and, stuff like that. So, in this little mini-series, we're going to learn first how to set up a MySQL server, then how to actually connect to it to send and receive data in Java, and that will include the basics of MySQL syntax and stuff like that. So in the first video, I'm going to show you how to set up a database, a server that runs MySQL server. If you're doing this for Minecraft or another service, and whatever you're using to host your service also provides you with a free MySQL database that's already set up, you can skip this video. It wouldn't really apply to you. But if you're doing this for a personal project, or you're using a hosting service that does not provide you with a MySQL database, I'm going to show you how to get one set up. Now, for this video, we're going to be using a service called DigitalOcean, which is one of my favorite services because it allows you to instantly, as it says in about 55 seconds, create a server. They have great specs. All of their hard drives are SSDs. But the cool thing is, once you create it, you pay hourly. It's like 0.007 cents per hour, really cheap, and you can destroy them whenever you want. So if you only want to use it for a couple hours, then you can start one up for a couple hours and then destroy it when you're done, and you won't have to worry about paying for it anymore. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is, if you decide to use DigitalOcean, you want to sign up for an account or log in if you already have one. You can use another service that will give you an account, but DigitalOcean does give you root access to your server. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that you have root access to whatever server you're using if you're not using DigitalOcean. I'm going to go ahead and put this on my second monitor and log in so that there's just some private information. Throughout this video, I might put this on my second monitor occasionally just because of some private information that might show up. But once you log in, you should see a page that says Droplets at the top, and it has a little water icon as well. On DigitalOcean, a droplet refers to a little server that DigitalOcean that's running on DigitalOcean. What you need to do first is, in your account, if you try to create a droplet, you'll first need to make a small deposit. First of all, DigitalOcean always has a promotion going on. For example, when I signed up for this account, I used a promo code and got $10 for free. So you're definitely going to want to check. I think they do it a lot on their Twitter account. So you're going to want to check and make sure that you get a discount. You get one of their whatever promotions going on right now, because they have them going on all the time. Then you're going to need to make a little deposit. The lowest amount is $5, but again, once you put money into your account, you can use that money just for whatever droplets you have running at any given time. So that's about it for that. You're going to want to make sure that you deposit some money. So again, this is going to cost a little bit, but I believe that the small server, the smallest one, which will be perfect for what we need to do, costs about, I think it ends up to be $5 a month if you leave it running for a month. So very inexpensive. At the top right, once you're all set up, you can go ahead and click on the Create Droplet button, and you will be taken to a screen that looks something like this. So you'll get this Droplet Hostname, and you need to pick a hostname. This is just, we'll name this. So I'm just going to call this one MySQL Tutorial, because if you have, or I guess no spaces, no. So what this is if you have multiple droplets running, you can, easily differentiate them. So I'm just going to call this one MySQL Tutorial, because this is for my tutorial series. Next, under Select Size, you'll see that you get all of these different options. The one that we're going to be using is 512 megabytes of RAM, 1 CPU, 20 gigabytes of SSD space, 1 terabyte transfer, $5 monthly, or $0.007 or whatever hourly. Very inexpensive. If you eventually wanted to get up to a bigger server, you do need to send an additional payment to unlock. When you do send payments to DigitalOcean, it's not like they take the payment. It does get applied to your account. They just need to, make sure that you have the ability to pay for this before they start giving you a server. So this is definitely more than enough. Then you can go ahead and select your region. Some of these are going to be blocked for, I don't know, it says high demand and capacity. But I'm going to go ahead and choose New York 2 because out of all of these, that's the closest to where I live. You'd probably want to choose the one that's closest to, where you live or where it would most be used. Next, under Select Image, you can choose your the image that you want to actually use. That's just like the hard drive that's actually installed, or the operating system. So there's Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Arch Linux, and Fedora. Those are just a bunch of Linux distributions. You can also choose to install some applications, and you can use, if you have old droplets that you had before, then you can create a new droplet that uses the data from the old one. In this case, I'm going to be using the 64-bit version of Ubuntu 14.04. I would recommend using Ubuntu, and I would also recommend using the latest version. So in this case, right now it's 14.04, but I would choose to use the latest version. And you want the x64, which is 64-bit. That's what I'm going to be using. Under Add Optional SSH Keys, unless you have that set up, that should be blank or it just won't show up at all. I'm not going to do that because I could do that in a future video if you're curious. Basically, if you have SSH keys, it allows you to log in to a server without having to type in the root password every time you want to get into it. So I could make a video on that, but I'm not going to do that for now. You know what? I will. No, I got to not do that because I need the root password. So you want to make sure that this virt.io is checked and just leave the other two unchecked, I guess. Then you're going to go ahead and click on Create Droplet. I'm going to pull this onto the other screen, but basically it's saying approximately 60 seconds, then it goes down to 49, now it's at 40, 27, it's just creating the droplet, and like it said, about 55 seconds, this is obviously taking a lot less. So now we're at about 6 seconds, and I think it might take a couple more seconds here. And then the droplet will be created. So we are going to go ahead and let this load. And let's see, we're down to about 3 seconds remaining. It might take a little bit longer than 3 seconds, but overall it should only take about a minute before you have your server done. And there we go, it is done. I'm going to go ahead and bring this over here. So as you can see, you'll get some information, the IP address of the server. I believe each one has its own, yes, each one does have its own dedicated IP address. So that's the IP address of this one. I normally probably wouldn't disclose it, but since I'm making this only for the tutorial, and if anything went wrong, I could easily just destroy it, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys see it. So active is just whether or not it's running, how much RAM, disk space, where it's being hosted, and the operating system. So now what you want to do next in order to actually access the server, and I'm going to do this on my other monitor, is you want to head on over to the email account that when you signed up for this, you put in an email account. When you go over there, you will have your root password emailed to you. This password is very important because you're going to need it in order to log in and do a lot of things with the server. So go ahead and check your email, and you should see something like your new droplet is created. It'll contain the IP address, the username is root, and it'll have a little password. If you ever need to reset it, you can go to Access and reset the root password. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually go ahead and install the MySQL server. So, what we want to do for this is, first we need to get access to the console. You can use terminal or command prompt built in with SSH, but I'm just going to go ahead and use the console access that is provided by DigitalOcean. Now, when you go here, this is the actual console of your server. As it says here, if you see a blank screen, just click on it and then click a key to activate the console window. So if you don't see it, then don't worry. Now, when you get to this login for the first time, the username is going to be root, and the password is going to be the password that was just given to you. I'm going to go ahead and type it in. You'll notice that nothing is showing up, but the password is still being typed in, so don't worry about that. Alright, so I've typed in the password successfully, and it is logged in. When you first log in, you'll get this information. It'll tell you, like, the system load, how much hard drive space is being used up, memory usage, processes, other important things like that. So now we're going to actually go ahead and install the MySQL server. So the command you want to type in is sudo apt-get install mysql-server-y. And now you're going to see a ton of stuff that shows up. And when you get to this and it wants a password for the root user, let me just pull this onto the other screen just in case it doesn't hide the password. Oh, it does actually hide it. Okay. And alright, so as soon as that's done, it will continue. What we've just done, excuse me, is, first of all, sudo is basically saying super user do, or I'm doing this with full permission. So some things you can't do unless you have full permission, but in this case I'm saying that I do. apt-get is a service that's already provided that allows you to it'll automatically install something if you give it a name that's in their database. We're installing MySQL Server, and the -y is just at the top. It'll say, like, are you sure you want to install this? Yes or no. And if you type -y, it'll automatically say yes, because we do, of course, want it to automatically install. So once it's done and you get back to root at your server name and whatever, once you're back here and you have the ability to type in, let's actually go ahead and access the MySQL shell. So we're going to go ahead and say MySQL-u for user root and then -p. You're going to enter the password that you created when you went to set it up. It asked you for the password, then it asked you to repeat it. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my password, and then if you do it correctly, you should get something to like this MySQL monitor, anything like this. Now we're going to go ahead and first of all set up a database, and then we are going to set up a table. And that's going to be all for this video, but in the next video we're actually going to connect to this server that we've just gone ahead and set up. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go ahead and type in show databases. Now one important thing is that, like most programming languages, requests or any command that you send to MySQL needs to end in a semicolon. So if I go ahead and say show databases, you'll see that there are 3 databases that already exist in here. And next we want to go ahead and create a database, and we're going to go ahead and say create database, and then you can go ahead and give it a name. So in this case, let's go ahead and we'll call it, I think for this tutorial we're going to make a point system. That's very common for SQL, so that you can gain points in a game, and then you can actually use the points in other games on other servers. So we're going to go ahead and just call this points. And you need the semicolon. And then it should say query OK, 1 row affected. And if you go ahead and show the databases, you'll see that points has now been added. Now we want to go inside of the database, so we're going to say use points, and then it will say database change. So now we're inside of there. And within a database, which is just like the overall database, there are different tables. And a table basically just contains, it's kind of like if you think about a spreadsheet, it has a bunch of categories, and then it has data with each piece of data that fills each of the categories. So if we go ahead and say show tables, you will see that it says empty set because we don't actually have any tables. So let's go ahead and actually create one. Now this might be a little bit complicated, but we're going to do create table, and we will call this one users because this is for the users. Then you're going to put a parenthesis, and the first thing that we want to do is we need to have the UDID. We're going to call this UDID. That's the unique identifier for each player, because we want to store that along with their name, and then we're going to go ahead and type varchar 36. This is the equivalent of a Java string, and the 36 in parentheses say that it can be as large as 36 characters, which I believe is the exact size of a UDID. Go ahead and hit comma and enter, and then for the next part, we're going to go ahead and say ID, or we're going to say num, and this is going to be int. And the int is going to, we're storing the number of points, and we're storing it as an integer, which of course is equivalent to the Java integer. And then you need to end it with a parenthesis and a semicolon. And now, if we go ahead and say show, not databases, we want to say show tables, you'll see that now instead of empty set, we have one table called users. If we go ahead and take a look, if we use the describe command, so describe users, you'll see that it has two fields, UDID, which is a varchar 36, and num, which is an int, I guess, with 11, so it can have up to 11 characters in the int, which is far more than we'll ever need. So that's great as far as there. Now, I believe that that is all we need to do as far as this, because as far as adding and adding and receiving information, we're going to actually do that inside of the plugin that we're going to make in probably the next episode. So that's not important right now. Now, I know that there's one or two other things that are very important that we do, so just give me 1 second to find them, and I'll be right back. Just two more quick things that we need to do in order to make sure that this database will work exactly how we want. The first thing that we want to do is we want, first of all, if I were to go ahead and try to connect right now to this database, it would not let me in because I don't have permission to access it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this database so that anyone will have permission to do anything. Now, of course, they do need to have a valid username and password, but this will allow anyone with that username and password to access this database. Now, one important thing that I forgot to mention is if you are making a plugin that uses MySQL, you're going to want to do one of two things. If you're making it just for your own server, you could hard code in the MySQL server information. If you're going to make it where you can distribute it to other people, you're going to want to make sure that they provide their own information, because if you have a database running and you hard code the database information into the plugin, then anyone could see your database username and password, go on and do whatever they wanted. So you're going to want to be careful. But this is just going to allow anyone to access this database and change it as long as they have a password. So the first thing that we're going to do, or for this we're going to say grant all privileges. I need to make sure I spell everything right or else it won't work. Next you're going to say on, then the name of the database, which in this case is called points, and we want to say .*, which means any table in points. You could do points.users, but we're going to allow them to do anything. Then we're going to say to, in single quotes, user, at, and then we're going to do a percentage sign, like that. And what we're doing here is we're saying, we're granting, and there's actually one more thing. We're going to say identified by, and then you can type in a password. Now, what this is going to do is we're granting all privileges on all tables inside of the points database to user at percentage or modulus. And what that's doing is it's saying that they can use the username as user and the host is anything. So wherever they are, as long as they choose the username of user, whatever host they're using in case their Wi-Fi, it will allow them to connect. Then identified by, and then you pick a password, and then they need to supply that password in order to be able to use it. So it's not completely open, but you still just need to be careful. Now, one last thing we need to do in order to make this work is let's go ahead and close out of MySQL I believe we say exit should say bye, and then we get back to root at MySQL tutorial or whatever you've gone ahead and called it. We're going to go ahead and type in sudo nano /etc/mysql/my.cnf. And what this is going to do is this right here is the MySQL configuration file. And there's one thing that we want to change. Right where it says bind address to 127.0.0.1, you want to put in a pound, or for those of you on social media, a hashtag, space, and then you'll have the bind address. And this will allow, what this is doing with the bind address is it's saying that it can only listen for requests coming from itself. 127.0.0.1 is the equivalent of localhost. So if anyone, from afar is trying to access the database, it won't let them. So we're actually now allowing them to. In order to exit, you want to hold Control and do X. We want to say Y for yes, and then just hit Enter. And it says wrote 127 lines, and we're back to that root at MySQL tutorial. Blah, blah, blah. Alright, so now, I know that this is a long video, but let me actually go ahead and let's make sure that this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this program right here called, I'm using this one called Navicat. I just have a trial of it, but basically what this program will do is it will actually allow me to, access the database through a GUI, and we can just make sure that it does work. And then in the next video, we will, of course, go ahead and we will go ahead and make sure to use the Java plugin to do it. So in here, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly set up the connection. I'll just name the connection MySQL tutorial. The host name or IP is going to be found right there or in the email that you got. The port is going to be, hang on, I don't think it copied. Oh, I see, that's in focus. Okay, so I'll just type it in. 162.243.231.221. The port is always going to be 3306. The username is going to be user, and the password should be what you typed in before. In my case, I typed in password. Let's go ahead and see if this connection will actually work. 231.221. Alright, let me just go ahead and pause the video while I make sure that I did everything correctly. One thing that I forgot to do is I forgot to restart the MySQL database. This will allow the changes to take effect. So, right here, you want to type in /etc/init.d/MySQL space restart. You'll see it'll say stopping and then starting. And once it's started, let me see if I can bring this window over. And this has, the information configured. And if I go ahead and say test connection, you'll see it says connection successful. So we have now successfully created a MySQL database that can connect to, we've created a MySQL server with a database and a table, and we can now connect to it from anywhere. And I'm checking this out inside of the Navicat program, and I can clearly see that we have the points database set up correctly, and everything is doing well. If I go under tables, we have the users table with UDID and num. So everything was set up perfectly, and if you follow these instructions step by step, you can have a MySQL server that runs completely correctly. In the next and probably last video of this very mini series, we're going to actually write a plugin that will connect to the MySQL database and send and receive information about from the database. So that's all for this video. We used a great service called DigitalOcean to set up the server. We created a new server. We installed and set up the MySQL server program, you could call it, and we set up a table and database. We fixed a couple of little things in MySQL, and now we have a fully working server. If you have any questions, you got confused during this, or you just need some help with something in particular, please make sure to leave a comment, and I will answer these questions personally. Otherwise, I will see you guys soon with part 2. Bye, guys.